Unit 6, Period 6, Consequences of the Gilded Age. We talked about labor unions, and we talked about the Pullman strike, and we talked about the groups that's going to fill a lot of these low paying jobs will be the immigrants from Southern and Eastern Europe and the type of nativism they're going to face. Well, we're also going to see a consequence of the Gilded Age is the development of urban America. And for the first time in the 20th century, the United States, more people are going to live in the city than in the rural areas of America. In 1900, as an example, New York, Chicago, and Philadelphia each had over 1 million people living there. And with that, there are tremendous problems with noise, pollution, sanitation, and many, many health problems. Why? Because in the cities, men called city bosses, the political leaders of the city, took advantage of the immigrants upon their arrival and sardined them, packed them into these low income, cheaper housing arrangements called tenements. Here you can see a police officer inspecting the inside of one. And a lot of these immigrants were poor and they also suffered from a lot of sicknesses and things like that. Well, you know that if people are packed in tight places with little ventilation, that these diseases can spread rapidly. And a lot of these tenements were called lung blocks because most of the immigrants that lived inside these tenements suffered from tuberculosis, and that disease spread rapidly throughout the tenements. Here's another image showing 6 immigrant men in one apartment building. A lot of times, these multiple apartments would share just one bathroom, and a lot of times, the the bathrooms toilets were clogged or there was no running water, and so you can just see that this expedited the amount of problems that were inside these tenements. The government did try to help. Here you can see an example of a government program called a dumbbell tenement, and it was built to provide more um, security and safety for the immigrants, more ventilation so that air could get inside and things like that. The weakness was the public hallway as immigrants came to and from the outside world. They would bring these diseases and sicknesses in with them, and they would spread it throughout the tenements. And of course, the stairwell was the least ventilated, and so and was the darkest and the dampest. So um, this was a scene of mildew and mold, and but also crime. Lots of violent crimes would occur here because it would be the public stairwell and would not be um, protected as well. The other opposite end of the spectrum were houses built in the largest cities, and one good example was one built by Jane Addams. Jane Addams was a philanthropist, shown here. A philanthropist, as we have learned, is a person who uses their wealth for the good of others, and she had a desire to help target young immigrant women coming into the United States with children. And so she had this house built in Chicago, Illinois, to temporarily house these women with their families, feed them, educate them, and then help them transition to American way of life. These uh, houses, like the Hull House, there were probably about 50 of them across the United States, had dorm rooms, kitchens, classrooms, and some of them were even big enough and wealthy enough to have gyms for exercise.